Hey, I want to welcome everybody to another one of the editions of the Morning Fuel. I want to first remind everybody that as guests, the cameras will be turned off as a default and your mics are mute. If you have questions, just type them into the chat feature and we'll pull them down and work them in. We have a great show today. Everybody knows this gentleman, but we have Clay Gaspar, the president and chief operating officer of WPX. Uh, I'm going to first try to run a little interference for him. Uh, Brooke, could you explain real quickly that we got to be sensitive about what asking Clay a bunch of merger related questions. Apparently, his company's merging with some other company here in Oklahoma.
I've
So
heard
go
something.
ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, I've heard something about that too. For the purposes of today's call, I want to remind our guests and web participants that until approved by the shareholders, Devon and WPX remain two distinct companies. Clay will have to speak in general terms regarding the combined companies beyond what has already been publicly disclosed. So let's make certain that we take care of our friend here as he shares his time with us and insights with us today.
Excellent, excellent. We all know Clay from not only OIPA Petroleum Alliance, but he also served on the OERB board with me as well. Uh, Harold's from Louisiana, but spent a lot of his uh, work life in Houston, Texas. He's a Texas A&M graduate engineer. If you've ever talked to him, you know he's an engineer. He's a bright guy. We're real proud to have him on the show. Clay, we're going to give you a little bit of here's the chance you get to bully pulpit. So get after it.
Yeah, so thanks, Dave. Thanks, Brooke. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody, and I do appreciate the guidance given on the around the merger comments. You know, this is something I get. It's hot on everybody's mind. I guarantee you, if there's folks from the Devon organization or WPX organization dialed in, they're also listening in for that nugget of information. It's we're going through that really awkward period between sign and close where we are working exceptionally hard to build the integrated team together. You know, we have an integration steering committee from about half Devon, about half WPX, and it's not just you know, how do we pick the executive team? We're running through the ranks of the organization, the structure of the organization, the software that we use, the procedures that we use, all kind of processes. And it's amazing the interrelatedness of all of those decisions. If we get this right person, then they are an exceptionally good user of this tool. So they need this tool, but this tool is connected to this tool. And so do we want to go that direction? Or do we reverse course, retrain a chunk of employees on another tool? Some of those kind of things are pretty deep into it. But as you guys very well said, you know, I can talk at length about all kind of things. But when it comes specific to merger, it's also just, you know, we have investors to inform. And between this really tricky period, we just have to watch any incremental information is seen as really important. Basically, everything's material at this point. And so I didn't want to come off as elusive or evading your questions, but I appreciate that intro for the group.
One of the things that if you haven't had a chance to talk to Clay, is he started his career as an engineer with Curtis Mewburn over at Mewburn, and so he has kind of a flavor like most of us, very independent, having to knows that you have to get the lease and settle the service damages before you get to do what he wants to do, is drill the wells, and he's got a good perspective of that. Uh, I always felt like Rick Moncrief had that same mindset. I knew it was going to be a great marriage when Clay joined Rick over there, and so some of that, you know, Rick is absolutely a prince in the industry. We're very proud of him. He's always been a supporter of everything OIPA, COGA, Petroleum Alliance, OERB. He's just always been there for us. We're hoping that we'll get to see more of you. You're not always in West Texas or New Mexico. You get to be with us some here, like you used to get to.
Yeah.
I think, Clay, there's going to be a bunch of questions coming in, and so I just wanted to maybe start out with. A pretty solid third quarter for WPX. I read the material, and it looked like to me, other than like losses on derivatives, it looked like you were just guys getting pretty neutral to cash flow. And my first question was, as you guys raised your guidance on free cash flow, which I significantly, and what's driving that, and maybe throw in a little bit about how you see product prices for people watching the show.
Yeah, appreciate that. There's a lot in that question. Let me start by a comment you made earlier about settling that lease and appreciating the landowners, appreciating the service companies, appreciating your non-operating partners in the wells. You're appreciating the industry around you, the community around you. One of the things that Rick and I are exceptionally passionate about are values and the culture of the organization. And at WPX, we've, I'd say within the last 18 months, we have been really kind of reconsolidating and rebuilding our value structure. How do we publicly talk about this? How do we make it into something snappy and memorable so that, that we can use it in these kind of situations or millions of others? And so we have three words that we really think about. And number one is courage. You think about times like this, if you are equipped to be courageous in this environment, this is the best time in the history of the industry to make courageous moves and do amazing deals for all parties involved, if you are financially equipped and have the firepower to do it. So number one is making sure that you are positioned well enough that you can act courageously in those opportunities when they come up. Number two is results. End of the day, as you mentioned, the third quarter results, if we're not performing, we're a publicly traded entity. We have a public scorecard traded every single day. And then once a quarter, we have essentially our final exams, and we get graded by the public based on those results. If you can't deliver on that, no one's going to tune in, and it doesn't matter anything else you do. But number three is the point I wanted to get to, and it's relationships. And so we think, that's one of our three words. You think about the level of importance in the other 87 words that really could have vied for that, one of the top three. Relationships was one of those three. And so we take that exceptionally serious. Relationships with organizations like yourself, relationships with other peer companies. How do we do data exchanges? How do we be a good partner? How do we be a good industry member? I'm sure we'll get on the topic of ESG during this call. How do we make sure that even the folks that are pulling against us appreciate us and at least will listen to us, maybe the cooler heads in the room, so that we can get to better alignment, better solutions, and ultimately to a point where we can all do the things that we need to do for the betterment of mankind.
Yeah, I figured there was going to be an ESG too. There already has been one. One of the things I think that we kind of cross-pollinate with and work across organizations with DEPA. DEPA's taken a real leadership role in ESG training strategy. How do we help our smaller companies that can't particularly shoulder the load to be compliant for what's coming for the future of our industry? And I actually serve on that committee with Clay.
I applaud those efforts. AXPC is deeply involved trying to get to some common language that we can all use, especially the more publicly traded companies, a little bit larger companies. Even when if we report something different, a different definition than Devin, let's say, we're not doing each other any favors in that regard. So their focus has really been around, let's get to some consistency in our messaging. Let's make sure we're all singing from the same hymnal to get this done. And I applaud DEPA's efforts, which are, there's a lot of companies that can't afford to have a director of ESG and invest in a third party to build some of the tools and the processes. How do we help those guys? They still have to answer to bankers. They still have to answer to investors that are getting a lot more. The scrutiny is coming all the way down the curve. Make sure that those guys are well prepared. I think PISA, the service company organization, has done an exceptionally good job, really with the bigger companies leading, but providing those tools and resources for the smaller companies.
And
just realized I didn't fully answer your question on the third quarter comments, and there's a lot of great material there. So let me just hit that real quick. Um, Production up, cost down. I mean, that's the quick summary. We continue to drive well cost down. You know, I saw a presentation yesterday, maybe, sorry, 2 days ago. Some of the engineers were just talking through bit technology and cutter technology and the thermal effects. I mean, this is literally on the cutting edge of what we do as an industry. And they are talking about the thermal effects of proper cooling for the cutters and the step change that they've recently made, and some of the deepest, hottest stuff we're working in the Permian. And it's a $75,000 savings per well. You know, it's a bit trip. It is a significant step change. And so a lot of those cost savings, you know, the investment in data and technology and the application of that hasn't slowed down. Our capital spend is down, but we are still pressing really hard to just get smarter at this business every day. We, throughout 2020, have had a very, very strong hedge book. I'd like to think that that is not just luck. We're very proactive, very thoughtful about how we hedge, what it means for us if oil price falls to this level or rises to this level. And when we see an opportunity that we can avoid some of that significant downside with giving up a little bit of the upside, asymmetric risk profile, we're going to invest in that, and that's how we think about hedging. So I'm sorry, back to you, Dave.
But that's great, Clay, and that is a great segue for we're constantly competing for the best minds, and we try to push not only through our early efforts with STEM programs, but we're trying to push our guys along to say this is the leading edge of technology. The things you just described, and that we need. I am very concerned, and I actually spoke about it at the annual meeting. I'm very concerned that we're at 10-year lows almost across the board in graduates in both geologic, engineering, energy management. We're at 10-year lows in enrollments, and you know the amount of folks that enrolled 4 or 5 years ago are not graduated. They're graduating at a much lower percentage because they're shifting and pivoting out of the space. And that, how would you encourage when you're talking to our younger folks? And I'm not just talking about the ones that they're going to college or in college, but also those 5 to 10 year guys that this is the first time some of those have seen a significant downturn where we've in mass have lost employment in our industry. Tell us what you would say to our younger folks.
So wonderful question. I love it. We could spend the rest of the time talking about this because I'm exceptionally passionate about what we do as an industry. And I think sharing that passion and empowering people in our industry to really understand and appreciate the heroic work that our industry does. It's a little bit, you have to have a little bit of humility when you talk through this, but you know, people love to point to teachers and firefighters and policemen and healthcare workers, and look, they all do heroic work. I challenge any industry out there to do whatever they do without the oil and gas industry. In short, we power every other industry. We provide the energy for every other industry. That we should all take a tremendous sense of pride in knowing that. Yeah, we're going to take the arrows and the barbs and the hits and that all comes with it. End of the day, take great pride in what we provide. You think about the correlation for quality and quantity of life directly proportional to energy consumption. Okay, all forms of energy. But you think about all forms of energy and the density of the energy associated with oil and natural gas in particular, the portability, the density, the ability to change industries, companies' lives, individuals' lives, families, societies. That's happening around the globe, and we need more of that. Now, all of that needs to be said with a great deal of humility associated with our industry has not always been good stewards of the environment. Our industry has not always been good stewards of investment dollars. That goes hand in hand. You got to own that. I think if you're oblivious to that, I don't think you can even engage in the conversation with whoever the counterparty is. But I think if they sense that you have pride in what you do, you're informed in what you do, and you're realistic about, hey, everything we do has risks and trade-offs. When you get out of bed in the morning and you walk to the bathroom and brush your teeth, you have just taken a risk. You could twist an ankle, something bad could happen along the way, whatever. You get in your car, you drive to work, you have just taken maybe one of your largest personal risks of the day. When you make investment decisions on behalf of your company or personally, you are taking risks. And there's upsides and downsides associated with everything we do. That you have to think through the economic advantages and disadvantages. You have to think about the environmental advantages and disadvantages. You have to think about the empowerment and the betterment for society. You think about the oil and gas industry, when you take a little look, kind of a little bit more of a micro look, say within the United States, what our industry's done since the inflection point in 2005, when the shale revolution has really taken over. You think about the the stimulus that the oil and gas industry has provided by providing cheap energy to every other industry. I don't know how many trillions of dollars that stimulus is, but it is on that scale. You think about the domestic security associated with us not having to rely on Saudi Arabia, Russia, and the like for our energy needs. And let's not kid ourselves. We cannot live in this society today without the energy. And so we would be fully beholden to people that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with on geopolitical issues, national security issues, and on and on. You think about what it means on our trading stance, the economic drive, when the U.S. goes toe to toe in a bilateral negotiation with any counterparty around the globe. If we have the safety and security of homegrown energy, we are in a much stronger negotiating position for everyone. It could be Mexico, it could be China, it could be anybody else. But when we have our own energy taken care of, then we're negotiating from a position of strength. So you think about all of the impacts that our little old industry has done without waving the flag and claiming amazing great things, but we should all take great pride in that. And it's a little different message as I speak to my kids' friends, or maybe their classrooms. I have a son that's in freshman high school, son that's freshman in college, but it's a lot of the same theme. I need you to think about how you do what you do. You know, your phone, where does it come from? Where is the energy? That electricity doesn't just come from the wall. You know, that phone just doesn't come out of thin air. All of these things that we embrace today and the amazing world we live in today is on the back of energy, also technology. Okay. Our industry is not technology void. Our industry is technology embracing. And so when we think about that combination, I think it should be very appealing for current industry members and future industry members to come to us. Now, I think we have to really be thoughtful about our messaging. This onslaught of ESG messaging, we have to do a better job of using the right terminology, not starting off with the nothing to see here, owning who we are, owning our strengths and our weaknesses. You know, look at what social media is going through right now. There's a lot of amazing things, and there's a lot of terrible things. But I can tell you today, this is the best time to ever live on the planet. Look, COVID, set that aside. I get that was a crazy, crazy event. Set that aside. Let's say pre-COVID, living in the United States in the beginning of 2020, there's never been a better time and a better place to live on the planet. Greatest country in the world at the greatest time in the history of the world. You think about, things like our, the climate change initiative, which, hey, I fully support. I'm an environmentalist at heart. I own land. I've got kids, and I hope to have grandkids one day, and I want them to live on a clean and flourishing planet. But I also want them to really have a high quality and quantity of life. So I think about, things like climate change and deaths related to climate events. Do you know that is a tracked number? very globally tracked number, and it's down 98% from 100 years ago. You think about the technology and the advances we have today allow us to be so much better at managing the climate and managing our reaction to the climate. And if you take energy out of that system, we fall back. We have more climate related deaths. We have more challenging life issues. If you want to live back, 200 years ago, anywhere on the globe, yeah, we're emitting a lot less CO2, but I can tell you quality of life is pretty bad. Sorry to rattle on, but like I said, we can talk about it for an hour.
I always heard it said from my grandparents, the good thing about the good old days is they're gone. This is a lot better deal. And so that's
wonderful father-in-law. He passed away this year. We hated to lose him, but in his later years, he would kind of reminisce back about the good old times. And I'd say, Wayne, he said, oh man, it's just so tough today. It's so tough. I said, you were born around World War II. Let's look back, and how many people do you think died during World War II? Do you think, remember what that was like? And as you go through the, rationing and the sincere fear that this could be the end of the world. This is life as we know it could be gone forever, and legitimately. I mean, there's some forks in the road during U.S. history that, things might have turned out significantly different. I mean, the whole idea of, man, back in the 40s, it was just life was great, nothing to it. That's just a fallacy. It's bad history is what it is.
Well, the difference is climate. It's okay to have climate concern. It's not okay to be a climate alarmist. And most of those they're driven by ulterior motives, and it comes to light over time. I'm a big believer in karma, so that will happen. So we woke up with a kind of a new financial model with the changes of the basically falling out that we went through, not only a COVID, but with a price war and a bunch of other things that happened. And you're starting to see what we've always thought would happen is all mature industries consolidate, and we're starting to see it. And I think I'm going to ask you kind of the comment about I see this potential merger with WPX and Devon as one of those. Concho and ConocoPhillips. I see it. I always wondered. We used to muse about why is this industry not consolidating. And I had a young guy with us that was listening to us talk, and he goes, "Well, I guess that's why they call them independents." And it kind of struck me that independent spirit is why we're so good at this business. Resilient, tough. It doesn't always work out like you plan.
Yep.
But you just keep digging, right? And so what do you think is on the horizon? And I'm going to ask you like this. What do you think the next ones are? And you can speculate all you want. If you can't, don't. And how many large independents, the super independents, will there be in say 2025 or 2030?
Yeah. Boy, I wish I was that good at predicting and speculating. I've been hoping and calling for consolidation in our industry for a long time. And when I get pressed on, okay, when does this happen? It's kind of a cop out, but I said it kind of happens when it happens. And I think we've seen this, and you look back in history, consolidation tends to start rolling. And when we did the Felix acquisition December of last year, we did it on the back of Parsley buying Jag. That was generally well received. We took some lessons from their communication. I think we improved the communication, but the deal was very structurally very similar. Parsley was very similar to what we're doing. Jag was very similar to Felix, and we leveraged that opportunity. Our deal was very well accepted. Our stock rose on the response, and I heard through the grapevine, okay, that's the model that investors will reward. sign me up for a Felix. I want a WPX Felix deal. Go find one of those for me, and we'll get that done. Well, we get our deal closed. COVID happens, and that goes quiet. Um, I think our deal with Devon is one of the really difficult ones. This is where you are really taking a little bit of a pride in your organization, and at the same time knowing that we can do better. You know, the hubris of or avoiding the hubris of it's got to be good because that's the way we do it. That is absolutely not the right approach. And I think a company, when say a WPX buys a Felix, okay, you can take that approach. Okay, we are buying you. There's no merger to it. We get your assets. We're going to handpick a few of your people, and typically the way it works is we just smash you right into what we're doing. Here's the recipe, go. I can tell you, we took the time, and I'm very, very proud of our organization for really pausing and slowing down just enough to make sure that we were extracting some of the better practices from Felix. Okay. My mantra is you can learn something from everyone out there. And if you're so bullheaded that you don't believe that, you will get passed up and you will fall behind. And so our goal for all of our teams was go find those two or three things in your specific part that Felix just figured out ahead of us. Or maybe we were leaning that way, they've gone ahead and tested and really incorporate that in. We immediately saved about $150,000 a well on facility design, not even in the Felix area, on our state line assets, because we incorporated some of the work that Felix was doing. Okay, so I love that. That's the better, a better approach. The tougher, and I think even further better approach is what we're doing with Devon. And so we are combining. We are looking, I mean, out to the accounting system and the type of program we run our economics on, and all these systems and processes. I just got a preview into how they do their monthly financial looks. Okay, how do we educate ourselves on how we're doing? How does WPX do it? How does Devon do it? And I guarantee you, it's not, you know, hey, it's the Devon name, and so we just use the Devon model. Or Clay's a COO, so we just use the WPX model. It's not that at all. It is much more difficult to do this integration the way we're approaching it. And for those listening in on the call that have firsthand anxiety about this, I continue to ask for your patience, because I truly believe the right way to do this is not the most expeditious way to do this. The most expeditious way to do it is just slam it together. Hey, I'm the COO, so we're going to use WPX recipes on this. Jeff Rittenauer is the CFO, so we're going to use Devon recipes on that. And you miss so much opportunity. So we are really taking the effort to blend and find the best of. And we're not going to get everything right, but we're going to try damn hard to do it. You mentioned Concho, ConocoPhillips. You mentioned Parsley, Pioneer. They are more acquisition type, and I think the acquirer will make an attempt to really bring in. Those are some really good companies. The acquirees, Parsley and Concho, are exceptionally good companies. Very, very experienced, very well-run organizations. And if the acquirer knows what the hell they're doing, they will pause, take time, and bring in a lot of what these smaller organizations are doing. So I love to see it. I think there will be more consolidation as far as numbers. I think there's, you know, I think of Shell, Exxon, BP, Chevron, yeah, those four, and then you got ConocoPhillips, and then you have EOG, and then you probably have like 16 more publicly traded companies. You get down to about $2 billion in market cap. We're kind of sitting in the middle with Devon, somewhere in the middle. You start consolidating some of those. You know, there's three of those names that sit in there that are getting kind of gobbled up in this process. And then there's a host of kind of sub $2 billion companies. I think the sub $2 billion companies, especially for the publicly traded organizations, there will be a lot of pressure to figure out what they do to consolidate or get gobbled up the curve. We just have too many. Honestly, we have too many CEOs, too many COOs, too many accounting shops, too many people trying to do the same thing in a small plot of land, and it's just causing inefficiency in our system.
I appreciate your comments, Clay, because I do think that the sincerest form of flattery is to mimic or copy somebody who's doing something better than you. That takes that takes setting your hubris aside, as you indicated. That's very true. I as far as these, listening to what you said, hearing kind of a demarcation line around $2 billion, is that kind of where that's today? I know that it's going to change, but that's kind of there's a kind of a break, and if you scatter them, there's kind of a break there, the two or more.
It's just a nice round number. I think there's another break at $10 billion. You've heard others reference that. I think we are all striving for relevancy. And this is publicly traded. I know we have a lot of private guys on the line, and that's a little different set of challenges. Not that it's challenge free, but in the public space, we are vying for that public investor, and relevancy is exceptionally important as we move the investment industry, especially the E&P energy investment industry, is going through radical changes. Historically, we've had an onslaught of energy analysts, very well versed people have been studying energy for 10 or 15 years, that are dedicated to really understanding these smaller companies and looking for that outlier. Okay, the research firms, the sell side analysts, are getting consolidated one by one. They're getting pulled. These experienced folks are moving on to other industries or getting exited out the door. And what that causes is we have more a generalist type view, writing research and covering our industry. We are a difficult business to really understand and to pick out that nuance. And what happens is, as the researchers, and then there's the buy side, which are the actual investors, think of hedge funds, mutual funds, they're trying to figure out, where do I invest my dollar? For them to really understand that $500 million, $700 million company, it takes a lot of effort. If they want energy exposure, they go buy ConocoPhillips, they go buy Exxon, they go buy maybe a Concho, maybe a Devon, maybe a WPX. But boy, for them to really reach down and find that micro cap that really stands out in the mix is just time consuming. And without that, the infrastructure of analysts, that relevancy becomes very, very difficult. And so by moving up the food chain, kind of up the curve in market cap and scale and size, you have an opportunity to really kind of stack into that top 5, top 10 list. And that's kind of where we'll sit, post merger. And it's, look, let me be 100% clear. Bigger is not better. I am emphatic about that. Scale matters for relevancy, but just because you slam together 3 or 4 companies and your market cap goes up, that does not make you a better operator. I cannot say that more emphatically. Still, scale and exceptionally good operations, exceptionally good financial mindset and discipline that's the magic formula right there. And that operations piece, of course, you have to have the right positions and the right geology, or this whole machine doesn't work.
Well, there's going to be, I'm going to agree with you there. There's going to be serial consolidation, the smaller, just because the G&A, the savings from G&A is probably the driver on those smaller, let's call sub-billion micro cap, or however you want to call it. And they're going to have the same. It doesn't matter whether you're public. You have the same problem with private. Is the investors that are trying to decide whether they're going to pick a WPX to put money in, they're examining your ESG track record. They're examining a lot of things like that. But it's not the reason why they're doing that is the people that are buying the stock, and the people that are buying the stock in chunks, they have those requirements from their investors. The same thing with private equity. Private equity is kind of like spooled it up for a little bit here. But what they're doing is they're looking for they're going to have to answer to LPs that have those same requirements. Hey, I'm, XYZ trust, and I'm going to put money in your deal, but I'm not doing it. And some of them are just basically saying, I'm not putting money in any fund that's energy. Or I'm not. That's what I think is that once energy became a lesser component of the Dow, we've hurt ourselves. There's actually large groups that are on the sideline because we just do not now represent a meaningful percentage of the Dow.
The S&P, yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I think it is, to engage in those conversations, if you can get in the room with the right people, and I think really about, you know, hopefully, and I truly believe this, they're capitalists at heart. Okay. I need to invest in profitable business because if I'm a portfolio manager, the greed in me says my incentive at the end of the year, this is how I get paid, is return. And so it's been pretty easy to look away from oil and gas as commodity prices fallen, our stock performance has fallen, and hey, we just haven't delivered. We are the lowest performing returns out of any sector for several years now through this seriously depressed prices, starting in, I guess October 14, November 14 to present. Boy, that has just continued to hit us. Now we've had some great runs along the way. What I truly believe is consolidation will happen. I think we'll see more stability in energy pricing. $40 is survivable for many, but it is not blowout profitable for many at all. I think you get into a $50 world, it still separates kind of the people that should be doing what they're doing and the people that shouldn't. And so you still have kind of a constraint, maybe a choke on the productivity of all of the fields. But at the same time, that should be a place where well-run organizations in the right position can generate very, very favorable returns. So I truly believe those investors will return when we provide that first litmus test, which is profitability, capitalism, right? The second test will be, okay, and I've heard this from investors directly. We love what you're doing. We believe in the team. We love the company you guys have built, but you have to give me cover on this ESG stuff. Just give me, I need you to put something on your website. I need you to have a good story. Please don't get, fines and violations or show up on the Wall Street Journal because I'm out. I cannot, I just have to move on to my next best idea. But give me the opportunity to invest in you, and I believe and I will invest. And I think that's the way investors will come back. We'll be attracted by a recovering commodity price. Tell you, $37 versus $43 is a world of difference in our business. As we continue to move to 45 and maybe in the later half of 21, north of 45, I think that the eyes will be drawn back. Second thing is we have to pass the test. We have to give them the ability to invest in us. And so that's kind of our mindset, in balancing that capitalism versus environmentalism. How do we do what we do? I can tell you, we are not moving away from being an oil and gas company. We're an oil and gas company. You have to get your head around that. If you don't want to invest in an oil and gas company, move on to your next idea because that's who we are. We will explore other ideas and get really savvy on how do we make the most out of every opportunity. My opening comments were around opportunism, seeing that opportunity, having the courage to step into something that's uniquely opportunistic of the time. There's a lot of stuff right now. We continue to evaluate really creative ideas. I love that our company is empowered and feels very encouraged to say, hey, what about? This may be a dumb idea, but what do you think about? Or, hey, I heard this or read this article. How could we take advantage of this kind of situation and what we do? And we love that kind of stuff. I think we've done some really creative things on the midstream side through some JVs, mineral deals, and other kind of creative financial solutions. But that's all on the back of having that openness, that transparency. This is not just, what Rick says, we all just fall in line and do. We empower the employees to bring those ideas to us and really kind of think outside of the box. We've got to currently have a bounty. This is kind of fun. I'm so sick of hearing about, somebody who just took data from one screen and typed it into another screen, and the inefficiency of some of the processes that's the way we had done it. I offered a bounty. I said, hey, I'll give you $1,000 if you can find a process that is this kind of manual data entry that we can figure out how to push a button and get it done. Freeing up people to work from below the neck to above the neck. Free that person up to look at the data and say, hey, this is an anomaly. I need to go figure this out. Instead of just, wasting their day away doing it. I love it. that
Now,
balance.
that whole concept is called intra-entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
You're going to hear more about that. I
Yeah.
want to segue real quick because we're going to run out of time, Clay. Kind of the proverbial elephant in the room. I'm a firm believer that these guys on Wall Street, they're not blue or red, they're green, and that's why they're going to come back in droves.
Yeah, and I think it's the color variety of green rather than the environmental variety of green. Look, green.
Well, green, the color of money. How about that? And
Yeah.
I think that our viewers would appreciate your comments on what are the effects of the election on our business, just in general. I'm not asking you to drill down.
Yeah. In generally, I think about, the difference between running for office and holding office. There's a lot of promises made. You go and scrutinize kind of a speech given in one district versus speech given in another district. There are comments made, and Biden is not necessarily the most eloquent guy, and he says things. I think he's been all over the map in regards to our industry and what it means. What I hear fairly consistently is he believes in the call to move to transition and move beyond oil and gas and embrace more renewables. Okay, I don't hear that in the sense of some of these crazy calls for tomorrow. We need to shut all the wells in, and we're going to magically flip a switch somewhere that turns on all these windmills that replaces, fuel for our car. It just like, Congress can change a lot of laws, but they can't change the laws of physics. They can't change the laws of economics. Just these laws of gravity, those kind of fundamental things have to predominate. So as I think about realistically what happens in a Democratic administration, specifically Biden, we don't yet know his full run of cabinet. I'm really watching that closely because that how much delegation he provides to some of these key cabinet members is very, very important. But realistically, what I believe is that our industry will be held to a tighter standard. We will have more regulation, more sand in the gears. That permit that takes 6 months now will take 2 years in the future. I think there will be more scrutiny on the things that we do and the public understanding of what it means. Our consumption of water, our methane intensity, any kind of spills, any kind of public facing events that we would have, I think will have a higher degree of challenge. I think infrastructure, you think of pipelines and other infrastructure that we need to build out, people have no clue about how much pipe there is in the ground today. They act like a new pipeline installation has never been done before, and why on earth would we do it now? We desperately need some more education on some of those things. Having lived through a Democratic transition at the New Mexico level, that governor ran on anti-frack, the state land office commissioner ran on anti-frack. I can tell you that is not the case in New Mexico today. I think their first budget meeting, they looked at the numbers and went, oh crap, if we want to fund schools, police, hospitals, everything we do, our industry, our state is run on the industry of oil and gas. We need to do it right. We need to hold these guys accountable, make sure they're doing things to the right standards and following the rules and all this. But my goodness, we need to support this industry in a big way. And I think that's more of the tone we will find when you really get down to it at the federal level. There will be a lot of curveballs along the way. And there's some people that just don't believe in physics, and those are the ones that scare me the most. If any of them get empowered to the point where they're really calling shots and they don't care about capitalism, they don't care about physics, they don't care about then what do we do? If they can't answer that simple question and they're just shut all the wells in, we'll figure it out later. We got to save the planet. There are people out there. We know the nicknames and all that stuff for them. If any of those people see significant power, that's really concerning for our country, for humanity in general.
Well, I think that was a good point you made, Clay. Is I keep up with I think I actually believe that EnergyNet was helped New Mexico. They have one of their largest public land lease sales in history.
Yeah.
And probably because that guy looked at the budget and said, oh crap, and, called Ethan and those guys and said, hey, you guys need to help us get some money. And so, I really believe that is going to happen in more and more places and more states. I
Yeah.
do feel like our environment in Oklahoma is pretty good because of the efforts of our industry and through the Petroleum Alliance and the wonderful work we do with our regulatory bodies. That's and it's always a pitch I make. I said, if you're a producer, a service provider, a midstream, downstream, upstream, I don't really care. If you're involved in this industry, you need to be a member of Petroleum Alliance.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no, and what happens in Oklahoma doesn't stay in Oklahoma. And, we set the tone on so many things. And I just hope that that people that are watching realize that what a wonderful thing that's happened here, where hopefully everything goes according to plan. And we get to keep two of our largest companies. We get to keep in our state. That is a big deal to us, and it's big news. And I'm real appreciative that everybody didn't ask you how many wells are you going to sell in X county. It hasn't shown up yet. Maybe we're blocking it. I don't know. But I tell you what, we're kind of out of time, Clay. I want to give you the last word, but thank you so much. We appreciate this effort to come on and talk to us.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. I really enjoy. I'd much rather be speaking three-dimensionally rather than two-dimensionally. It helps me to appreciate and be able to look people in the eye and understand who I'm talking to a little bit better. There was a question on ESG. I think I covered that.
I thought you caught. We just work them in, and you were.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I really think that DEPA is helping set the stage for, so you can say, look, I'm a small company, but I'm not tone deaf. I realize this is important. It's in my program. We have this template. And so this is what we're doing about it. So they can tell, maybe it helps you attract capital.
Yeah.
And that's why we need to embrace that as well.
I love the approach of DEPA and PISA and as examples, the larger companies that have a little more ESG infrastructure, people, investment, all that kind of stuff, maybe some history, really helping out folks that are small guys that, look, I can't afford to go, spend all this money with a third party. I think in both cases, the larger companies that are generously donating and supporting this understand that if that small guy has a really bad disaster that makes the news, it hurts all of us. We are all in this together. And so I'll go back to my comments around the pride in our industry and what this industry does. Pat yourself on the back as best you can. Take a look at the production plot from 2005 to present, and you think about, I'm not real good with this, but think about it this way. If you just extrapolate that 2005 production level, about a little over 4 million barrels a day, down to where we would be today without this industry, without this revolution, I would put it on the same order as you think about interchangeable parts and Henry Ford and some of this massive revolution that's happened in the energy industry. That wedge of production that we have created, this industry has created, and the impacts associated with that, it is country moving, world moving. And as we do more to provide this energy to all facets and all parts of the globe, it moves societies up. You think about your first world problems of, being concerned about whatever it is you're concerned about. I would render a guess that it probably pales in comparison to that mother that is in some third world country, that her focus in life is to get enough food and enough clean water for her kids to survive one more day. And you think about what that means if you're able to provide technology and energy to a society like that. The quantity and the quality of life is life changing, literally life changing, society changing. And those are the kind of things that I don't I don't think you can do it in isolation. I think all energy needs to work together. We need to be very thoughtful about how do we do this. We think about the benefits that it's provided to our country and the future benefits it'll provide to other countries. Yes, there's challenges, there's risks in everything we do. We need to balance those. We all need to get smarter. We need to think about how do we not just do things better, but communicate some of the great things that we're doing. I hear a lot of calls for why aren't we communicating this? I can tell you we have a lot of efforts. I participate with the API, the AXPC, the DEPA, the OCOGA, the Oil and Gas Alliance. You go through the list, Texas and New Mexico and North Dakota, and all of these are trying. What it really takes is for the people on the call sitting at a family function. You got some crazy cousin in from Colorado or from who knows where, and to educate them, have a rational conversation about, hey man, how'd you get here? Wow, I flew. Okay, you damn oil companies, you should need to stop. Wait. You flew? Was that via wind or solar, or did you flap your wings? How'd you get here? How was that plane built? Think about the manufacturing, creating that steel and shaping that plane. Think of the energy consumption associated with that. Take away all planes. What happens to your quantity and quality of life associated with that? I think all of us need to take that on and continue to communicate the great work that our industry does.
Clay, thank you so much.
Happy to do it, guys.
Thanks, Clay. Appreciate you very much.